Welcome, everyone, and good afternoon. Welcome to the regularly scheduled board meeting of the Akron Public Schools on 10 October 2022. And wanted to start off by saying Happy Indigenous Peoples Day. We are so blessed and fortunate to live on this land. And in honor of this day, we want to just acknowledge the sacrifice and pain and generational hardship that a group of individuals have led as we have been able to use the land resources here for the city of Akron, Akron Public Schools, and all that we do. So we want to just honor that sacrifice as we celebrate Indigenous people and know that this is some genuine words and acknowledgement of their sacrifice and honoring them and the legacy that they have left and lead. And with that being said, we will call this meeting to order and start with a roll call. Mr. Pendleton.
Dr. Akbar.
Here.
Mr. Alexander.
Present.
Ms. Autry.
Present.
Dr. Hall.
Aye.
Ms. Jackson.
Present.
Mr. Perry.
I'm here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now move to the Pledge of Allegiance. And Mr. Perry, do you mind leading us?
Absolutely.
Please stand if you're able.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We now move to item 1.3, Community and School Reflections from our board members. Any community and school reflections? Ms. Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Since the last time we met, I had the pleasure to visit Bookdale High School, Bookdale CLC, and it was a great experience. It was just a joy walking into the building, how bright it is, how exceptionally clean it was. I was there and I spoke with a few students. And the one young lady that I spoke with, I said, oh, she needs to be a future lawyer or politician. She was questioning about the board, what we're doing. She was asking me questions about certain classes, protocols, procedure, just inquisitively, not talking down about anything or anyone, just very inquisitive. And it was a delight to meet with her. I also had the pleasure to, of course, meet with the principal, Ms. Beecher. She was very busy because earlier that day, tell me, on the 28th, what was Akron in Action? Thank you. Akron in Action was there. I came in after everyone had left out, though. So Ms. Beecher was there. She was very gracious and greeted me. I love Ms. Booker at the front office. She also was great, high energy, very pleasant. Mr. Antoine. I met so many people. It was just really a delight to be there. One of the student ambassadors, which I love this student ambassador program that we have within our district. It is a great way to develop young leaders and to highlight children who are already in our community as leaders within their school. Miss Aaliyah Golden, she showed me the different pathways. She's in physical therapy, so she told me a lot about physical therapy and the offerings and the things that they're doing this school year. She took me to restaurant management where I saw Miss Edwards and some Bookdale alumni that came also to just highlight the school and speak well of the school. And I also was very impressed with the library technician that was on site because they have a lot of things. You know, entrepreneurship for the young people is my sweet spot. And I think it's very important that that's promoted as a pathway because they can create their own economic empowerment and freedom. And so I really liked how the students could use the Resource Center in Bookdale to create like T-shirts, buttons, and they can just come in there on their time and create things personally for their branding purposes. And I thought, how awesome is this? What I could do with that, Miss Audley. What I could do with that with some kids. So, and the technician was very open and she was knowledgeable, and that was very refreshing to go into a library resource center that had all this technology equipment, and knowing that students are utilizing this equipment, are familiar with the equipment, and that there's someone there to assist them with that. So I thought that was great. And then I had the pleasure to go into Miss Erin Bowman's class. She teaches African American history and social studies, and it was a very enriching class. I like how the classroom was set up. It was a very relaxed environment, but the students were talking about Ethiopia, and I thought she did a very good job, like really allowing the students to express themselves. What do you see? What do you observe? They took a virtual field trip in the different areas, and I just thought I liked the representation in the classroom. It was a very eclectic mix of history, and it showed the reflection of various people throughout history, and I thought that was very great that she was being an exceptional educator, and that's what excellence looks like. It looks different. It looks like someone bringing students together in that way. And in that class, another inquisitive child. She wanted my card because she wanted to email me about this English class, and she has some suggestions about what they should be reading in English. And so I told her, well, hey, send me an email. Not the textbook, but the literary part of it, as far as textbooks. And I told her, yeah, send the board an email and let us know your thoughts. So again, I want to shout out to Bookdo, to all the 1040. Y'all stay 1040 till y'all in y'all grade. So I guess I give y'all a shout out. But great things are happening in Bookdo, and it was a pleasure to visit and see all those positive things that are happening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Dr. Hall?
Thank you, Mr. President. So I don't want to steal Ms. Ebright's thunder, because I know she's going to give a presentation on Akron in Action, but I did have the chance, as a Dr. Akbar, I did have a chance to provide some remarks for, I think, the final day of Akron in Action. And so a lot of tired faces, a lot of, well, actually, let me rephrase that, a lot of people who appear to be propped up on coffee, but they were very attentive, had a chance to make some opening remarks to them, and had a chance to really talk through, I think, what we all collectively saw as kind of at least three of the major thematic elements of the visit, right, around transparency, authenticity, and equity, right, and how those play really fundamental roles in how our college and curriculum have come to be and how they are continuing to evolve. And so I think it was very humbling to have folks from so many different states. I want to say it was 11 different states, I think was the last count I had, as far away as Alaska, and that's a long way to come for anything, coming from place that used to be known as Seward's Folly, right? I think that was the history. That's my history reference in there, right? And so, but as we talked about, they weren't just here to learn from us. They were learning. They were here to learn with us, right? So again, I'm looking forward to hearing Ms. Ebright's presentation as she elucidates further on the activities of those 3 days. Although I do want to say that I was a little bit jealous that we had folks from out of town that stay at the Boutique Hotel. And I've not had a chance. And by the way, I'm not getting paid to say this. I just have. I've wanted to stay there for a while, and so I was asking folks about how the accommodations were at the Boutique, and they got A++ accommodations. So I've got to get over there. But anyway, Ms. Ebright, looking forward to your presentation. No pressure, but I'm sure it's going to be fantastic. All right, that's all I had. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Ms. Autry.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just briefly piggybacking on Dr. Hall's comments about the Akron in Action, I actually was able to attend the opening event, which was just remarkable. I know we're getting a presentation earlier, but I just have to do a thank you and congratulations. I thought it was just so impressive. It was so touching. It was just, you had to be in the room, especially at the very end when all the different students came in representing employment, enlistment, entrepreneurship, enrollment. And it was just really remarkable. So, okay, military, yes. Enlistment, Mr. Dr. Hall. And so whoever put all of that together, the team, kudos, congratulations. I was really proud to be a board member witnessing that and being able to just be associated. Also, since we last met, I was able to attend one of West Akron's oldest traditions, Pancake Day. Bookto versus Garfield was the homecoming game as well. Very nice event as usual. Beautiful to play on the nice turf as well. Also was able to attend a few middle school football games. Again, it's just nice to be around something that brings so many people together in a positive way. Thank you.
Who won between Bookto and Garfield? You didn't say.
Congratulations to both teams and yeah,
Okay.
Bookto was the winner. Thank you.
I think we set you on opposite sides of the table for a reason. Mr. Alexander.
Yes, yes. I also had an opportunity to go to the Akron in Action just briefly, and I did get, and I don't want to steal any thunder either, but I just got a chance to sit in with Miss Ebright and Mrs. Rachel Tecca in their presentation, and the people were really interested in what was going on. I thought it was really nice to hear the questions they were asking. They even threw a couple of questions at me, which I said we'll answer, but I wanted them to hear what was going on with Mrs. Tech and them. And I thought they did a really good job in their presentation. I'm just so happy and pleased that Akron is on the forefront of all that's going on, and we're letting people know, and people can go out and say, hey, this is what I saw in Akron, which makes us, stand out, which is really good. Also, on Saturday, Councilman Neal and I, we went to Ellet to the Bookto East game, and we were able to talk to the players at the beginning of the game at midfield, and we talked to them briefly about being leaders, being those who can be change agents in the game with their peers and things of that nature. And they were really receptive, and I thought it was good. And we're talking about some more things that we want to do in collaborative with APS and with the kids and our students. So it was really good. I enjoyed. I didn't get a chance to watch the entire game, but it was a good game. I stayed up until halftime, and I thought, man, I really wanted to stay a little longer, but my grandbaby was calling me, so I had to go. And so that was good. And then lastly, I had an opportunity to attend OSBA Northeast Regional meeting, and Linda Mobian was recognized there because she's a past president of the organization, and so she got recognized there at the event. I thought it was nice. It was a good turnout of people, and so they're doing a good job. And then I was also shocked but pleased that I was able to be elected as president-elect for the region. And so they did that, which was, I wasn't looking for that to happen, at least this year, but they did anyhow. So they're doing a good job in presentation. So I'm eventually want Akron to show its face and show what we need to do and show up to show what we're doing once we get to that point. So a lot of good things are going on. A lot of good things are going on. Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations. Anyone else? Dr. Hall?
Yeah, so first, apologies to Ms. Autry. She did say enlistment. I'm so amped up on the military, though. And also congrats on Bookto's victory as well. So I want to, sorry, but I just had to. But I just wait till you guys play North. I mean, you got something for you guys. So Miss Jackson actually made me think about something. Tickled my brain for a minute about the student who asked you for the card and wanted to reach out and have a conversation, and made me think I haven't seen a student board member here in a while. When are our colleagues on the student board due to start joining us again? Because I've missed the report outs and the interactions there. So this may have been in an email, so this is me embarrassing myself in public. I may have missed an email, but today. Oh, it's today. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. So you said, that was 2 weeks ago that email went out. So it was today. Okay. Good. All right. Fantastic. Okay. So clean me up. So all right. Here we go. All right. So we know when they're coming back. That's in 2 weeks.
I think it's in 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks. Okay. I can't wait.
We have some new faces, so we have
Roger
pictures
that.
as well.
Okay, roger that. Thank you, Miss Whitfield, wherever you are. Thank you. All right.
Yeah, she does a great job. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay, hearing seeing none, we will move to item 1.4, request to address the board. We do have two requests to address the board. And so you have 2 minutes to share with us. 3 minutes, I'm sorry. I don't know where I got the 2 minutes from. That was not on purpose. So you have 3 minutes to address the board. We just asked you if there's any concerns or complaints towards personnel to please let us know, or as well as ask you not to divulge any student identifying information. If you do have any complaints in those areas, please let us know and we will recess into executive session. Otherwise, you have 3 minutes and we will call up first Ward 4 Councilman Russ Neal.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just greetings, everyone. Good to see some familiar faces. I appreciate the work that you do. I'm here to make a request, and that request is that we capitalize on this moment in time that's before us. Our city was blessed, like many cities, to have ARPA funds come in. Collectively, our city received $250 million. $250 million. And my request is that the board please consider setting aside 10% of your allocation to collaborate with the city. And I've had conversations with some of my colleagues, so nothing's guaranteed on their side yet. For us to set that aside, that would be $24 million roughly. And rather than looking at that by wards, we would look at it by clusters and create what we call community wraparound support. And I say that because there's many in here that are familiar on a plan that we were working with the former principal of Bookto, Ms. Hughes. Mr. Hatcher is familiar with that plan. Ms. Autry's familiar with that plan. I don't know, Ms. Chapman, you may have some, yeah, Ms. Chapman. And everybody knows when you say when you say wraparound support in Akron, everybody knows wraparound support now because of the I Promise School. I don't know where I am in my time, but I'm just asking for another audience with you, along with some members from our community, that where we could come and just share with you how that will work. It will help us institutionalize the collaborative work within our communities. I don't need to tell you, we all know what's happening out in our community. We have to find a way to use this money to support those organizations that can help us help each other. So at another time, I think there's another meeting I need to ask to come to, but please, before you spend your complete allocation, if you could please consider setting aside 10%. The city, is taking applications for its second installment now. Those applications need to be in by the end of this month. So thank you for my time.
Thank you very much, Councilman Neal. We appreciate it, and we will definitely consider it. And hope that you can, if you have substantial plans or anything that you want to review, that you talk with Board Member Autry and the Capital Management and Finance Committee. With that being said, we have another request to address the board, Pastor Harrison, and I don't have to repeat all of that again, so you got it.
I got you.
Thank you.
Hello, APS. I'm glad Brother Russ is here. I drove 4 hours, so I asked for just a little grace. Glad. Last board meeting, we had a color guard here, and a young lady talked about the military academy. She wanted to be in the military academy. She wanted to get accepted. We also had a young lady, Dominique, who talked about she wanted to run in the Olympics. This is not what I originally wanted to talk about, but I want to talk about this because Saturday, West Akron track, we were planting trees down at Lane Field. The coaches and some of the track players were planting trees along with some other kids. And Coach King, Regina King, and she told me that she wanted a permit to use Elliot's track, and it was $200 an hour. Now, I'm glad Brother Russ is here because we on a committee went through the APS and the city use of CLCs 7 years ago. 7 years ago, this has been brought and we have talked about it. Is it reasonable to charge a community organization that charges no money, that takes our kids to AAU events out of state, out of their pocket. We have a tragedy that happened with 3 students. And we're saying we want to do this youth violence. We want to get them off the streets. $200 an hour to use an outside track? Is that reasonable? The young lady who said she wanted to go into the military academy, she should have started that 2 years ago. That process is a rigorous process. And so it's good to talk about the good things that's happening in APS. But the equity is not simply equity on paper or a committee or bringing a consultant in. The equity is making sure that our kids have access to what we as citizens paid for. What we paid for is for them to have access. And when people are doing positive things like donating their time for our kids, going out of their pockets, we need to support that. It is not reasonable to charge someone $200 an hour because what you're telling me is you don't want me to use it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pastor Harrison. I would hope that we could work on that so that that's not becomes a barrier, because I know that our joint board of review, Ms. Autry and I have shared that multiple times at that committee, and so we should have a process to work with that. So hopefully we can get that resolved, and if not, please let us know. With that being said, we appreciate everyone coming to share with us. We will move down to item 3, Akron in Action presentation. I will turn it over to Madam Superintendent.
Thank you. And we do thank all board members and the community at large for the great support that the Akron in Action received. And so, as you have already forecasted, Marcy, we wait with bated breath
Thank
to
you.
hear your recap on behalf of the team of what the experience was like.
Thank you, Superintendent Fallback, and good evening, President Akbar and board members. Thank you for allowing me to steal a few minutes of your time this evening to update you and share with you the events that happened over 3 days, just 2 weeks ago, called Akron in Action with our college and career academies, Forward Next Generation Learning Experience. So as you are aware, APS was designated a Forward NGL learning community in 2017. There are over 50 school districts around the country that are also part of this Forward network. About a year ago, Forward asked us to be a site visit, designation site visit. This is a really huge honor for us out of all those school systems, mainly because, we're sort of newer in the scope of the work, so we have a lot of fresh perspective on what's worked. Our work as we've moved into the middle school academies and our work as we started in the elementary. So they thought we'd be a great opportunity to bring in other people who are interested in the network or earlier in their work in the network to come and learn from us. And those guests came from around the country, as you heard earlier. They were educational leaders from Alaska, Tennessee, Arkansas, Missouri, Michigan, Indiana, as well as the Hewlett Foundation, of course, Forward NGL, and the Ohio State Board of Education members were here. Attendees were able to preview and build schedules and access resources through our conference app. And I've added all of you to the conference app, so you'll be able to go in there and check it all out. So check your email for that. It may have come out today, Dr. Hall. I'm not sure. So the first night, we had a welcome session at the John S. Knight Center, and all of those guests came in. We had probably another 100 guests from our staff and other Akron leaders in attendance. And then the parade of students that you heard about was organized by Ms. Dreama Whitfield, getting all those student voice. I think we had almost 200 kids. So we had probably about a 1-to-1 almost of kids to staff that was there. So the staff student voice was really strong. We had a great lineup of speakers, Mayor Dan Horrigan talking about the economic impact, Summit County Executive Elaine Shapiro, our workforce development,
President Akbar, of course, on behalf of your school board, and how college and career academies have allowed for greater equitable access for students. Superintendent Fowler Mack covering the benefits that's been brought to the classrooms in partnerships with Ford NGL. Mike Schmidt from Ford NGL on our unique work in Akron. Assistant Superintendent Rachel Tecca on the past, present, and future of college and career academies. And of course, Star Griffin, Buchtel graduate and current OSU student, who rounded out our list of speakers and I think brought some tears to the audience, just sharing her journey through Akron Public Schools and the effect that the college and career academies has had on the trajectory of her life. The session also included this parade of students. The drum line brought them through as they highlighted what their E was, whether it was employment, entrepreneurship, enlistment. Thank you. Thank you, enrollment. I knew that. And then they came through with the drum line and their posters. We had students, the Firestone Litchfield Choir were there. We had a Firestone soloist. All 4 branches of the JROTC were in the parade. Students from Jennings, Buchtel, Ellett, Garfield, East, Bridges, Miller South, all a bunch of students from our fine arts students coming through with their signs, really sort of set the tone for the rest of the night as people left sort of energized, seeing these students and all of their aspirations. On day 2, the attendees then were able to actually go to the inaction piece, right? They were able to go out into the schools, go out with our partner organizations, our high schools and our middle schools. They spent the day at one of these 5 pre-selected sites in the morning and in the afternoon. And then they gathered back at the end of the day to share with their team members from their school districts the observations and the things that they found at our various sites. On the morning of the site visits, they all started here at our administration building on the 2nd floor. They heard some of our data and impact of how the college and career academies have assisted us, and also a lot of sort of the authentic transparency of the work that we still needed to do ahead. And then from there, they got on the bus and had a personalized host that took them from here to their site visit and made sure all of our guests got to all the different sites we took them to and back here at the end of the day. I'm happy to report we only lost 1 person at one site. And then some of the site visits, there's Tamia Edwards actually acted as our MC the night before at the opening session. So she was introducing all of our guests and speakers there. And she did double duty the next day as a student ambassador over at North, welcoming the guests as they came in. And then you can see us a tour as they're heading through over at the Garfield lab. Our schools were really excited and self-selected to be part of Akron in Action and had been working for months to prepare for our visitors to just show off their students, the different roles that they have in their buildings. We saw round tables out there where they had small groups discussions with our coaches and our teachers, and we're really able, and groups of students, to really sort of ask questions one-on-one, as well as tour and see the facilities in person and see the students doing the work. On the 3rd day, we did take them all over Akron. So then the 3rd day, they went over to the Akron Student Union and had a welcome in the Grand Ballroom. And then they were into 30 different topics. That welcome included Dr. Hall and I sort of setting the stage for that day, and the topics that they would hear about and how they would flow through that. There were about 30 different topics, but we covered things like getting started with an academy partnership, ensuring access for students with exceptionalities, deepening student and joint leadership opportunities, experiential learning, how to fund this, family engagement, instructional shifts, and just designing the master plans and much more. So they were able to hear not only from the adults that were doing the work in the different sessions and tag up. So if you were a counselor from a school district, we had counselors presenting how their role and shift was impacted. building principals presented, and they were able to see who they were in order to go to an audience that made the most sense for them. But we still had several students that showed up that day to support and lend their voice to different sessions where it was appropriate. We'd like to thank, there's a lot of people to thank, but we had a lot of subcommittees that worked on this, who prepared our students, our staff, importantly our students who took time and stayed late to get ready for the event. Those people who hosted guests and filled in with all the field supports. I think we probably had about 75 volunteers that took time out of their busy days to welcome people for breakfast, make sure they got on buses safely, met them at hotels to greet them. And we're on site at every aspect throughout the events to just support all of our visitors as they were traveling throughout our schools and our city. We are looking forward to many more opportunities like this, and we got a lot out of this too. It was great to be able to show off, so where we were at, but the learning that took place in the conversation from other districts gave us a lot of personal insight into our collective struggles and our collective successes and next steps to consider. So we were super happy that we were able to have this event, and we will be planning for hopefully some future events. Are there any questions I can answer for you? Yes, sir.
I forgot to mention the student ambassadors. They did a very good job.
Yes.
They stopped me, they asked me some questions, but they had our visitors were asking them a lot of questions, and I just kind of sat back and just watched and listened. They did a very good job. So we need to applaud our students for a well done job at that event. Thank you.
Thank you. I know the site visits that I were at were mainly student ambassador led. So they were really well versed in communicating to the guests what their programming was like. It was pretty amazing to see. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And it was an amazing event. So kudos to you as well after you thanking everyone else. All right. With that being said, we will move to the next item on our agenda, which is the approval of the regular meeting minutes from 26 September 2022. Is there a motion on the table?
I so move to
It's
approve.
been properly moved by Mr. Perry. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Mr. Alexander. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing and seeing none, we will do a roll call vote, please. Mr. Pendleton.
Mr. Alexander,
Yes.
Ms. Autry,
Yes.
Mr. Perry,
Yes.
Dr. Hall,
Aye.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes.
Dr. Akbar.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now move to personnel recommendations. Madam Superintendent.
Yes, I wish to recommend the approval of the personnel recommendations presented in categories 5 through 16.
Thank you very much. It's been properly recommended for the personnel recommendations. Is there a motion on the table?
So moved.
It's been properly moved by Ms. Autry. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Mr. Perry. Any discussion on the personnel recommendations? Hearing and seeing none, we will do a roll call vote, please. Mr. Pendleton?
Ms. Autry,
Yes.
Mr. Perry,
Yes.
Dr. Hall,
Aye.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes.
Dr. Akbar,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we will move to resolutions and motions on the consent agenda. Madam Superintendent?
Yes, I wish to recommend approval of the resolutions and motions presented in category 22. They are in proper format, and I move for their approval, please.
Thank you very much. There's been recommendations for the resolutions and motions on the consent agenda. Is there a motion on the table?
So moved.
It's been properly moved by Mr. Alexander. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Ms. Jackson. Any discussion on the motion? Ms. Autry.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to acknowledge in section 18.1, just giving a shout out to the 75 staff members who have gone on and to enroll in graduate programs, workshops, et cetera, just to improve their instructional skills and expertise. And so I just wanted to acknowledge those folks who took the time to invest in their professionalism to give the best to our students. Also, I hope I'm not getting ahead, in section 19.4. I just wanted to acknowledge the Cleveland Browns Foundation and their investment to transform one of our ISS classrooms to an alternative learning environment. I think that's just so important, especially at the high school level. I'm just really partial to our older students. So I really appreciate that investment for our young people, just to have some alternative environments, not so punitive all the time. So a special thank you for that investment from the Cleveland Browns Foundation. And then also, I just wanted to acknowledge item 19.9, which is actually a safety grant that we have received. As we hear so much about what's going on in our community, I am happy to see that we're getting this grant that's going to allow our schools to have updated equipment and even possibly equipment where we can check the students' bags without taking out a whole lot of time going through metal detectors. So I believe we'll have the capability of getting the same equipment that is used at airports. And so that's going to free up time for our employees to, do other things with our students, to greet them in a way where they're not, again, coming in through a metal detector and taking up a lot of time. So just wanted to point that out, that we are making that investment to make our schools safer. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Autry. Any other discussion? Hearing and seeing none, we will do a roll call vote, please. Mr. Pendleton.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Dr. Akbar?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Ms. Autry?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now move to business affairs recommendations. Madam Superintendent.
Yes, I wish to recommend the approval of the business affairs recommendations in category 23.
Thank you very much. It's been recommended for the business affairs recommendations. Is there a motion on the table?
I so move.
Thank you very much. It's been properly moved by Mr. Perry. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Ms. Jackson. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? Hearing and seeing none, we will do a roll call vote on the business affairs recommendations. Mr. Pendleton.
Dr. Hall?
No on items 23.4, .7, .8, .11, .12, .13, .16, .19, and .20. Yes on the balance.
Thank you. Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Dr. Akbar?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Ms. Autry?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now move to superintendent's report. Madam Superintendent?
Yes, I do not have a formal report this evening. I look forward to, at our next meeting, we're going to talk a little bit more about the things we're doing to enhance safety. So you heard about some of the equipment this evening, and we're continuing to do some other assessments and improvements. So we'll be prepared to talk about that.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Madam Superintendent? Okay. Hearing and seeing none, we will move to the President's report. So there's only a few items that I wanted to discuss. First, I just wanted to take this time to recognize our very own Bruce Alexander for being inducted into the APS Athletic Hall of Fame, who thought he was going to sneak in here and not have anything said about that. So just wanted to take this time to recognize him for that, and it's a great feat and honors obviously the legend that we've all been hearing about for years and years of what he's done. So thank you. You're welcome. I don't think North been the same since. With that being said, I wanted to just bring up, we have a board retreat on October 29th. Madam Superintendent and I have met with the consultant, and by now, all of you hopefully should have met with the consultant one-on-one, and there's a homework assignment. And that also came today as a reminder. So if you haven't done your homework assignment and you don't feel like you've been in school yet, then you haven't done it. So go ahead and look for Deborah Key's email that will remind you of your homework assignment. We want to make sure we get that done. I think that this will be a very productive day. So I just wanted to remind you of that. And then also, it's already been said, but I just can't let it go by without just saying how phenomenal Akron in Action was. I don't think that there was a dry eye left once that band came marching in and marching out. Like the photo, the pictures, everything. It was just so phenomenal, and it's what we know we have. We have the greatest students, and we have some outstanding talent here. So just wanted to recognize that, and recognize all that was involved. And then I shared this, I think probably a few moments afterwards to Madam Superintendent, but I wanted to say it publicly also that, that was just an outstanding display of what our district is. And I just wanted to thank her and the rest of the team on just a phenomenal job. So thank you very much on that. And then the last thing I wanted to just share is we are in the process of drafting the superintendent's evaluation as prescribed in the contract, and we'll be meeting tomorrow in our special meeting to do just that. So just wanted to mention that as well. And with that being said, I think that is my report. Any questions? Okay. Must be the new safety technology. Thank you very much. With that being said, we will move to the next item, which is the treasurer's report. Mr. Pendleton.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. We will now move to committee reports, legal contracts, and board policy.
No report.
Finance and capital management.
Thank you. No report at this time. We will be reconvening on Monday. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Instructional policy and student achievement. I do know that Ms. McKittrick is out sick today, so Ms. Autry or Mr. Perry?
We have no report at this time.
All right. Thank you very much. Equity committee.
No
Dr. Hall?
Yeah, sorry, no report. We will be rescheduling.
Thank you very much. With that being said, we will move to item number 29, unfinished business, which is board policy 5120, assignment within the district. We talked about this at the last meeting. Wanted to see if there's any further discussion on this item. Dr. Hall.
Yeah, let me weigh in. So, I think, the question that and this is why I'm glad that this is being discussed is, as I read through it, initially, I didn't have any reservations with sort of the phraseology and how it was put together. And then in reading it, I was doing a lot of thinking about the purpose, right? And so there's some language in here that talks about the expectation that students attend school, within their area of town. I'm looking for the exact language here, and I wonder if that is so there's a difference between wanting to fairly draw the boundary lines for our schools for the purposes of thinking through capacity, right? But then that's different than an expectation that we would expect students to go to the high school or school within the area where they live, within their boundary area. And the reason why, as I've given this more thought, the reason why, and again, and by the way, I'm not saying I've made a decision. I'm just saying that this is something that was concerning for me as I thought more about it, was in this era of open enrollment and with our college and career academies offering differing pathways at various schools, I'm just wondering if there's a better way to think through how we account for how many students are assigned or live within a different high school area, and then how do we act upon that? Because you may have 1,000 students who live within boundary line A, but you may have a majority of those students who have an interest in a pathway that's outside where they currently live. And so I'm just wondering if there's another way to think through how do we, like what's a new innovative way to think about how we articulate or describe boundaries for a given high school when the high school itself is no longer predicated upon where kids live. It's predicated upon their service offerings and what is or is not more or less attractive to the student in the community. And so again, as we're still building up the College and Career Academy concept, I'm wondering, Ms. Teka, and not to put you on the spot to jump in front of the microphone, I'm just saying this is, to me, I think this is food for thought, right? Is there a way to look at a rolling historical average of pathway enrollment in a certain high school and say, hey, this ought to be the right boundary that we're creating, which is based upon more of student selection than where a student lives in the city, and so again, these are all thoughts I've had just in the last several days as I've thought more about this. Again, the language of this policy, I didn't find flaw with the language in the policy. Just maybe start thinking, is there another way to count or to define what a boundary line is, right? And so I'm not saying I'm correct. I'm not saying I have all the answers, right? This is just me saying openly and publicly that, that I'd love to hear from some of you all on what I just said, and I apologize that I didn't put this in email and send it out before the meeting. But again, I just was, even as we were starting off, I was kind of scribbling some notes as to how I was going to try to explain the concept that I'm trying to articulate, and I don't know that I've done a great job at it, but I guess your responses will tell me whether or not I need to provide further explanation, or if you all think I'm maybe not describing it correct.
I want to just thank you for your comment, but also point you to that we do have a board policy 5113.0, which talks about intra-district open enrollment, which there is a line in this policy that basically says that nothing in this policy will prevent a parent from seeking those options. So I just wanted to point that out, Madam Superintendent.
I was also going to say one of the great things that will happen later this week is we will have the advisory group that will begin to meet to further assist us as we move long-term planning down the road. And so we will be spending some time talking about enrollment and choice, and how that's baked into the way it is we enroll students in the district and how we think about boundaries as well related to choice. So there will be a bit of that, and I know you're participating in that even later this week. That can, because our practice has continued to evolve to consider the fact that parents are choosers, and especially at our high school level, we've set up programming in support of that.
Yeah, and I just think that it's so I appreciate that, and definitely acknowledge the point that Dr. Akbar made as well. The reason why I say it, let me add to that, right, is that we've historically, this entity has made decisions around where to put schools and where to open and or close schools predicated upon where students live, right? And so we have a policy right now at Kenmore High School, for example, that doesn't exist anymore, right? And so kind of as we talk through that, we say, well, there's not a lot of kids, there's not as many kids going to school in Kenmore, right? But how much of that is a function of choice too, right? So what kind of options have we given students in Kenmore as an example, right? So, so a lot of you know I've done a lot of advocating on behalf of Kenmore, but my point being is that if you take that logic and you apply it fairly across not just Kenmore but the rest of the city, you know, it really comes down to how do we create attractive options in a given building in a given part of the city. So that way we're no longer tied to how many kids live in a zip code. We're tied to the choices that a kid has at a varying school, and that becomes kind of the new standard for how we start to count or attribute students to a given school, right? Is by the choices that those students are making. So if more students are choosing a school on North Hill, just as an example, then maybe that means that we think about a larger building on North Hill because more students are choosing the pathways that are there, right? Alternatively, again, there's multiple ways to slice this, but alternatively, does that mean that you change pathways to different schools to impact and positively impact enrollment in different parts of the city, right? So again, I don't have all this worked out in my head. I'm just giving a lot of thought and just wanted to kind of be open and honest, you know, with you all and say these are things that are going through my head. I don't find flaw with this particular policy, but this policy made me think about all these other things, which I wanted to make sure I was saying openly and sharing with my board colleagues and with members of senior staff and the public who may have an opinion on this topic as well. So, so with that, I think that would conclude my commentary on this particular policy for now.
Thank you very much. And just to point out item E on the factors that the board and superintendent may consider, also talks about sound balance of student population, which is vague enough to cover whatever that may mean during that period of time. So I just wanted to, that might solve some of your heartburn. But with that also being said, is what this policy is doing is just giving us a framework to start to discuss where we assign students. So it's not about the decision making yet, and that will come when these meetings happen.
Yeah, let me add one more thing, Dr. Akbar, if I may. So just so I'm being clear, this policy doesn't give me heartburn, right? Okay. I think the policy is written just fine. I'm just sharing with you all with what the policy made me think. It makes me think that I'd like to hear more. You know, again, you know, there's a committee that some of us will be on later this week. But I think that again, you know, as you've heard me talk about in board meetings going back now 3 years, you know, you always hear me talking about Akron being the cradle of innovation from a public education standpoint, and how I'm always going to advocate for being market driving, not market driven, right? So let's be innovative. Let's think about new and creative ways to do this. I don't have all the answers, right? There's a lot of really smart people in this room that have far more experience than I do and spend more man hours and woman hours thinking about these topics, right? And so this is just me kind of trying to push a bit and say, hey, I'd like to, you know, collectively, can we think, you know, is there a way for us to think differently about how we do these counts, you know, that isn't so tied to how we've done it historically. But again, the policy in itself, it doesn't give me heartburn. It just makes me think that there's a lot more conversation to be had that's related to how we think about attendance and how we set boundary lines. So anyway, thank you, Dr.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Any other discussion on the policy as sent to you in email yesterday? Ms. Autry?
Thank you, Mr. President. So I just wanted to clarify, because I know we discussed this at the previous board meeting, and there was a slight change that I understand was discussed at the actual committee meeting. So I'm not privy to that, but I wasn't there. But just looking at what's been presented to us with that addition, it's basically stating that the board is included in these discussions. Is that the gist of
Yes.
what we're trying to add to this policy?
There was a few other changes before we got to that point, but yes, that is the main gist of that one minor change, which says that the board and the superintendent will review it every 4 years, and it's not just to wait when there are recommendations, which could be 6, 7, 8, 10, or 11 years potentially.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any other discussion?
And so can I make a motion to bring forth this policy as I guess, corrected and presented to us.
Yes. You making that motion?
Yes.
Okay, so it's been moved to accept the policy 5120, assignments within the district, as corrected or shared fully in email yesterday. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Dr. Hall. Any further discussion on this motion?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Alexander?
Yes. Since this is a part of the policy in the policy committee, and we have these questions, just so everybody will be clear, including myself, legal as well as others, that again, as I mentioned last board meeting, I think these should be kicked back to the policy committee so we can make sure everything is correct. And then when it is correct and we all agree upon it, then we move it forward. So I just want to make that comment because I think that's what we need to do, and that should be part of the process and has been part of the process of what we've done for a number of years to make sure that we get it right and make sure the policy is correct so we don't have to go back and try to redo it or make some adjustments or amendments at that time. So that's my comment. I recommend that we send it back to the policy committee to make sure we have it correct, and then we bring it back to the board, and then once it's okay there, then we move forward with it.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I have a
Dr. Hall?
So again, I just want to make sure I'm understanding the conversation. So to Mr. Alexander's point, so is there a concern that there's something in the policy that's not correct? I just want to make sure that because if we're saying that we're correcting it on the fly, then procedurally, I think that makes sense. But I'm also not an expert in Robert's Rules of Order either. So, or are we saying that the correction has took place at the committee level and now it's come to us? So, if someone could clean me up on that, I'd be appreciative. Yeah.
Yes. I'm saying that we should make sure it's clean first and bring it back because there was some discussion. There was some discussion with council, discussion with Dr. Akbar and I. It was some question that we had as far as Madam Superintendent, and so we want to make sure we're all clear on this here and not have to have these discussions like this here all the time to take up the time in our general meeting because that's what committee meetings are for, to discuss those type of things. So kick it back to the committee, let the committee look at it. Once we get it correct and we know we're sure, send it back and then let's approve the policy. That's what I'm saying.
So if I could also just interject, so the process was followed. The committee did put it forward to the board, which is why the board even reviewed it at the last meeting. The challenge was when we noticed that the change that we asked to be made, which was the highlighted version that was sent 2 weeks ago, and that's there still today, was not changed. I basically sent the email sharing that was not adjusted, and the version that was in board docs was not the correct version. And so we as a board decided at that point to table the discussion at the last meeting so that everyone can be clear that that was the language that was agreed upon, and that was done. And so that's really where we are. So nothing has changed. It was just making sure that the language was captured the way the board committee intended, which is there. We've had 2 weeks to review that. And now it's back in that same format. So nothing else has been added or done on the fly. So I just wanted to point that out.
And Dr. Hall, just so you're clear, last week we did say we're going to table it, and I recommended it get sent back to the committee, and that's where I was thinking that we're going, and that's what I thought we voted on last board meeting, that we'll go back to the committee. The committee will make sure everything is correct, and then we will bring it back so we don't have to take time like we're doing tonight to go through this here. We will make sure it's done. Everything is done. It's complete at time. Legal would have seen it. Everybody would have seen it. Let's bring it back. We're okay with it. Let's approve it. Okay, and so that's where we're at because sometimes there are emails that come really short, and we don't have a lot of time, and there's a lot of things that go on in all of our lives, and so therefore we want to make sure everybody has an opportunity. I wasn't really clear on what was being said, and I said I wanted to sit down and go through what we're talking about. So if there's something that all minds are clear, we can move forward on it, and we can approve it. But we need to make sure that's what's happening, and at least my mind is not all the way clear, because I need to see the comparisons and talk about it as well. And so that's where I'm saying kick it back to the committee, let the committee do the work as it's supposed to, which is what the committee is for, and then bring it back to the board.
And I guess
Mr. Perry?
my concern is also, I mean, I'd always want to make sure that we're always on the same page about what we're talking about. And if we have a board member who's concerned that the language in the agreement is not the same as we discussed, or that it should be pushed back into the committee meeting, maybe that's the wisest thing to do. You know, pushing something through without making sure we're all on the same page and it all reflects what we agreed upon just kind of strikes me as maybe a little bit haphazard. So I don't see any danger with pushing it back to the committee, letting the committee decide to bring it back at some point. If we can have a time frame on when that might happen, it's not going to get pushed back forever, obviously. We want to make it happen sooner rather than later. But I just want to make sure we're on the same page. You know, if Mr. Alexander has a concern, we should certainly address that concern, you know, at the appropriate time.
I appreciate that. If I was just to share just one final thing, and then we'll see if there's any further discussion on the motion. Nothing in here has changed, and when we tabled the discussion, we tabled it to give everyone the opportunity to read over it, because it was noticed at the last minute. So I just wanted to, I think the board, you know, made that decision at that point. So we'll go forward with that. Let's see, Ms. Alexander.
Yeah, and I just wanted to make it clear too that I thought that when we were tabling so it can go back to the committee, because that's what was asked, and we made a motion to table it so we can go back to the committee. Again, it is the board's decision, but we need to do things properly and clear so we all can understand and know what's going on and be on the same page, because we have not been really doing that. And I think bringing it up in this time, we're wasting our time here, our business meeting, where this should be part of a committee meeting and not the business meeting. It's just not, to me, not good business, and we need to follow business and have business run the proper manner. And so, to me, we have time for policies. If it's something that OSHA or that we need to have pushed through because it's urgent, then we can do that. But we don't have to rush on everything. We can take our time to make sure it's done correctly, so we don't have to go back and make any changes or corrections, or I didn't understand it, so I don't understand it. Make sure it's clear. So kick it back to the committee, let the committee do their work, get it back, and then we can get it passed. Because we're not just trying to hold a policy up, you know, hold it hostage. We want to move this forward as well, because we got a lot more policies that are coming. So that's my thought, and that's what I spoke about last board meeting. I'm going to stand to it this board meeting.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, can I ask one more clarifying
Dr.
question?
Hall?
Yeah, I'm sorry. So obviously, you know, I was not at the last board meeting. I was in negotiations, so that's why I was not present. And I thought I read the minutes of the meeting, but I think I probably didn't commit it to memory. Mr. Alexander, the vote you're referencing at the last committee meeting, I'm sorry, the last board meeting, can I just get clarity what we voted on precisely as relates to this policy? I mean, were we voting to table it, or were we voting to send it back to committee? I just want to make sure, because the words matter here, so I just want to make sure that I've got clarity as to what precise language did we use in the motion here.
And I can't tell you the precise, but what
Okay.
it was said that we were going to table it, and was recommending that it gets kicked back to the committee, so the committee can do the work on this here and get it back. So that's where I thought, if that's wrong, I apologize, because I got it wrong, but I thought that's what we were doing, and that's why I made that recommendation at that time.
Yeah.
You know, so that we can get it done and get it done correctly, and not like we're doing. We're talking about this right now. This is a committee discussion, not an actual board meeting discussion. We're taking time to talk about this. It's okay, but we still need to use our committee. That's what the committees are for. If not, we don't need to have committees.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Okay. Ms. Autry, sorry.
Ms. Autry?
Yeah, the minutes that we just voted and approved stated that we voted to table it.
Okay.
Right.
My understanding is that that small section we were to review as board members.
Correct,
Because
yep.
it was just one sentence, and that was highlighted and sent out to all of us. So
Well,
that
that's
was
why I
my
asked for the precise
understanding.
language, right? Because voting to table it is not the same thing as voting to send it back to committee. Those are two different motions. So those are not the same, which is why I was asking for that, because I want to make sure that I understand what we're talking about here.
And again, that's why I say, so we can all be clear. We're not all clear, because I'm not clear. I thought we were tabling it so we can send it back to committee. That's what I asked.
Yeah.
Okay, and so that's what we were looking at we were doing, but we're not doing that, I guess. I need to be clear as well, and there are a lot of things I haven't been clear on, I want to be clear on, but we got to be able to communicate effectively, not just communicate, but communicate effectively, so we all know what's going on, we're all on the same page so we can get the work done. Because we shouldn't be talking about this right now. We should be moving on with our other business and moving forward.
Okay. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we will now entertain a roll call vote on approving policy 5120, assignments within the district, as shared via email. Mr. Pendleton, roll call vote, please.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Dr. Akbar?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
No.
Ms. Autry?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Dr. Hall?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now move we have no new business to come before the board. And we will now move to executive session. We do have a need to move into executive session, so I will accept a motion to recess into executive session pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 121.22G4 for the purposes of reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions with employees concerning compensation or other terms and conditions of employment. Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been properly moved by Dr. Hall. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Mr. Alexander. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing and seeing none, we will do a roll call vote, please. Mr. Pendleton.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Dr. Akbar?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Ms. Autry?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. As I do not believe there's any action items to come before the board when we return. Those of you who choose to leave, I just wanted to thank you for coming today, and we will now stand in recess at 6:42 into executive session.